I went to pick up the laundry and she handed me back a bag that was significantly lighter than the one I'd given to her. And then we realized that nearly everything was missing. And I went through a range of emotions, anger, sadness, like everything. And then I was like, no, this is okay. It's the experience of doing this digital nomad thing that has just made me realize I just don't need anything. I need my laptop, I need my passport, and I need my husband. And it's like there are three things. It's like tick, tick, tick. If that's all there, everything's functioning and it's totally fine.
From scrappy founders to 8-figure success stories, we're busting startup myths, getting raw insights from market-tested entrepreneurs, and revealing the proven playbook for bootstrapping your B2B startup to 5 million. This is the Startup Different podcast. Hello, folks, and welcome to another episode of Startup Different. I am David Singinson. With me is Chris Singinson, and we have a new friend today, Jodie Cook. Jodie, how are you? So good to see you.
Hey, I'm so good. And we just worked out that where I am, it's plus 26 Celsius, and where you are, it's minus 26 Celsius. So we've got a lot in common.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, wow. I immediately started the interview on a high note for you and a super low note for me. And we average out at 0, which is like not really where, and this Celsius for our American friends, so 32 Fahrenheit. No, that's not really nice either.
They would hate that.
Yeah. I think a lot of people watching this will be like, I don't want that. Anyway, but Jodie, thanks so much for joining us. It is wonderful to have you on the program. Yeah, very cool that you're calling from, or phoning in from sort of like across the world. Today we want to talk a little bit about you, about your career up to this point, and the really cool stuff that you've been doing, with AI and Coachfox and all those kind of interesting things. But can you start us off by just getting to know you a little bit? How did you get to this point in your career, and take us in?
Yeah, sure. So some of the highlights I would say is before I was 22, I'd had 15 jobs.
Wow.
So I had worked in restaurants, in shops, in football stadiums. I'd done mystery shopping, lots of stuff. And so when I was 22, I decided to start a business because I was like, well, it's easy to get a job. Why would you get a job? That can be your plan B.
Why bother? I mean, well, I guess when you've hit the high score at like 15 jobs before 22, that's almost a job per year of life. Like it's getting close,
Yeah, some of them were multiple at the same time. In the year before I started my business, I had 2 full-time jobs in the year because I just wanted to, I always felt in limbo when I was in the education system. And when I was working, I just really felt alive. So I was like, let's just get more jobs. And then having 2 full-time jobs meant I could start a business. So I started a social media agency at 22, built it up, had a team of around 20 people at our peak, and I sold it at age 32, 10 years later, just after a COVID year where we shrank a lot and then grew a lot and then grew even more. So it was time to sell. And then since then, so kind of along that way, I started competing for Great Britain in powerlifting, so the squat, the bench press, and the deadlift. I started becoming a contributor for Forbes on the topic of entrepreneurship and AI, and now I'm a senior contributor for Forbes on the same topics. And I'm also digital nomad, so I just live wherever, and I've lived in about 35 different cities in the last 10 years, including Toronto, and now I'm in Cape Town.
Nice. Oh my goodness, that's awesome. Wait, where in Toronto were you, just out of curiosity?
I want to remember the name. It was Little Italy.
Oh, you were on College Street. I love that part of Toronto. That's like one of my favorite parts. But anyway, okay, hang on. I got a lot of questions. So you said at 22 you had an agency with 20 odd employees. Is that correct? And then you sold
at its peak. Yes. At its peak, we had 20 people. Yeah. To start with, it was just me.
And what was the agency really doing? What was your day to day in that business?
So because it started in 2011, we were in the time period where we were actually convincing companies to be on social media, which is so different to how it was now.
Hey, Dave here. Let me tell you a little secret. When we were building AppArmor, we needed to move fast, especially with quotes and invoicing. FreshBooks made that possible. Yeah, this is an ad, but seriously, FreshBooks was essential. My sales team could send sharp quotes in minutes, and it automatically handled millions in invoices and reminders. No chasing, no stress, just cash flowing in. It was so easy to get paid. It's built for small businesses by folks who get it. And yeah, like us, they're Canadian. What's not to like? If you want to spend less time on paperwork and more time growing your business, head to freshbooks.com and start your free trial. Trust me, it's a game changer. And now, back to the show. Wow, that's got to be a million years ago. It feels like that's crazy.
Yeah.
It's like being like,
like
well, the internet. The internet's going to be a big deal, Jodie. I don't know if you know about that, but yeah. Okay.
It did feel like that. It was an education piece. So we actually set up Deliveroo's Twitter account in a couple of different locations when they first started, and so it was a big education piece. It was convincing people that they needed to be online, that they needed to be doing the stuff, and then because we didn't really need to like niche down at the time. It was like social media was the niche or the niche area of digital marketing. So we did a lot of stuff. We looked after people's LinkedIn profiles. We ran ads, did people's Twitter, wrote blogs for them, that kind of stuff. And it was working with lots of clients in hospitality, events, and professional services. But the hospitality and events side of things really didn't serve us well in March 2020.
Right. Yeah. All of a sudden that part of your market just sort of evaporates. I mean, we had kind of a similar experience where like our initial product was in public safety, and it was all about like people congregating, like people who would be like in the same physical space together. And then suddenly it's like COVID. It's like, oh, you're like not allowed to do that. Like it's like illegal to do that. That was a big curveball for our business. So you sold that business. Do you mind? Can you tell us how much, or you can just put it like in general terms if you want, or?
Yeah, it was a 7-figure exit. March 2021. The process was that I signed up with a broker after I decided that it was time to sell. He explained the whole process. He said it would take 6 months. It took 6 months and 2 days. And we had 12 really good. 12 first meetings, 6 second meetings, 3 offers, and then negotiated, and you can only sell it once.
Wow, cool. That's like a very interesting like sales funnel for your selling your company.
Yeah, dream. It was dream. It was really good actually
amazing. And that's like your freedom money, right? Then after that you could basically do whatever you want, within reason, of course. And that's partially how you have your lifestyle now, and you can decide to have, your company or whatever you want to do, plus like living sort of all around the world. Does that be true, or?
Yeah. So before I sold, I was running it like a lifestyle business. So I'd say for the first 3 years of the agency, it was like the artist game. And then for the next 5 years, it was the lifestyle game, where I was like, I need to hire other people and I need to get them to be in charge of everything so that I can go travel and live and do other stuff. Nice. And then during like COVID, when I was pretty much stuck in the United Kingdom where I'm from, that was like the performance game, because it was like, go, go, go. We need to build back up. We need to do the stuff. And then it was the sell game when that was time in those 6 months. But the lifestyle game for me looked like traveling for 1 month in every 3 and having a team of people in the UK who were looking after their business. And I really just wanted to do myself out of a job so that I didn't have to be the person who every decision went by. I didn't want to be in client calls all the time. I didn't want to have everyone reliant on me at all. It was all about creating something that didn't really need me.
Yeah, so I've and Chris, I will let you speak at some point, but I'm just really into this right now. So I guess I have 2 thoughts on that, and I'd love your take. So on the one hand, I feel like any good business, you want to systematize so that the founder isn't irrelevant, but isn't necessary either. Like the business can operate without you. And there's actually a really good author that we like here in Toronto who's actually endorsed our book. Shameless plug there. But and his name is John Warlow, and he wrote this book called Built to Sell. And it's basically this image of founders like feet up on the table. The idea is like the business runs itself. That's kind of what you're striving for. You're creating systems, creating processes, empowering people so that you don't actually have to be there to do it. On the other hand, though, I always wonder, is there like a material, and this is like, I'm not questioning your legacy because it obviously speaks for itself with this, even just your first firm. But do you think that was good for the business? Like, do you think the business was better off? Like, do you think you hit those numbers, or did it matter to you? Like, was it just more important that you were out there? Like, do you think there was a negative effect by you not being around?
How I see it is that, when you hire someone, you've got this whole career plan laid out for them. And then as they join your company, they get better, they do better stuff, and they progress and they keep going. I feel like a founder's journey through their company can just be a mess unless they make it intentional. So how I saw it was that my first 3 years were just doing all the stuff, working with clients, learning how to hire people, being very on the ground. And then I wanted my role to keep progressing, just like everyone else in my team. So it wasn't that my goal was to keep progressing and then like really do nothing. It was to keep getting my own role up to the next level, to see how I could keep removing myself as a bottleneck. So the part I really liked towards the end, especially, was like coaching my team. So not being a manager, but being more of a coach, where they'd come to me with this challenge that they had, and they would lay out all the stuff they'd thought about, and they would lay out all the potential solutions. And then I would pretty much just say, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? And then they'd say it, and then they'd get there. But that was so much fun. And then I really liked it when those problems got bigger and bigger and bigger, because they could solve the smaller ones for themselves. So I guess I saw it as the people in my team progressing, my agency progressing, and then me progressing as well. I read the 4-Hour Work Week around about the time at the start of that process. And then that's what made me think, I started this business so that I could live my dream life at the same time. And I'm not doing it at all, because for the first years I hadn't even taken a holiday. So I was trying to see how I could get the best of all these worlds. And I kind of feel like I had it.
Yeah, I think so. What do you think, Chris? I feel like we didn't do a great job of this. I feel like you in particular didn't do a very good job.
Definitely not. Actually, I kind of want to ask a question kind of along that same vein. So I was the prototypical like entrepreneur workaholic CTO that was always in the office, weekends, evenings, like just leaving it on the field to try and keep moving the business forward. After we exited, I finally found that, oh my gosh, I have all this free time. I should start going to the gym, and got really into exercise and fitness and that, and then nutrition. So I was thinking about your powerlifting. So was that something that you were doing while you were running the business, or is that something you discovered after your acquisition, your exit?
Or was it like an intimidation tactic? Because I would be intimidated if my boss was like a professional power lifter. That's like, in any disagreement, if we come to blows, I know I'm going to lose. So
yes. Yeah. If they resort to physical violence, which obviously all good bosses do.
Sign of a healthy workplace.
I started training for powerlifting in 2014. So 3 years in, and I started competing in 2016, started competing internationally in 2017. So it was all going on at the same time. I feel like awesome. For me, training is more important. I think I put the pillars of the gym and training in first, and then I have my business around that. I think I'd be a lot more likely to turn down a work thing for a training session than I would be to cancel.
That's impressive. Yeah.
That's like real discipline. You know, we've had like a lot of founders on the show, and there's kind of like, there's two categories. There's the workaholic, and then there's kind of the people who build the business around them and around like this like idea of, obviously, first off, prioritizing personal life, but also like the value of consistency. This is a theme that keeps coming up, where it's like, you know, the business is going to keep moving forward. I don't need to be like driving myself crazy or stressing out or not able to sleep or disrupting my normal life to keep that business going. And I think this is like, I don't know if it's an American thing or what, but there's definitely this like idealization of like grit and pushing and, you know, like that kind of intensity. Well, I think it's interesting because it's very counterintuitive, but it feels better, a lot better in a way that actually the way to move the business forward is to responsibly do so in the context of your life. And I feel like that's got to trickle down to your employees too. Like they got to be like, well, you know, Jodie's prioritizing her life, and I should make sure my work-life balance is good too. I still care about the business, but you know, like that kind of thing has got to trickle down to your employees as well.
For sure. I think there's probably 3 main benefits. First is the one that you've said, which is we were a very, very healthy company. There were ultra runners. There were people who really took pride in the sport and the health and the fitness, which meant that we had hardly anyone ever take sick days because they were just healthy. We also had it that I would have like office hours. So I'd be in the office Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 a.m. until 12 p.m. And other than that, I was either working remotely or working or training. And
hang on. Could people couldn't contact you outside those hours?
They were I wouldn't be like there. So they could, but I wouldn't be that responsive because I don't just have like Slack on all the time. I was trying to do more deeper
You were
work.
like intentionally reducing your connectivity so you could do other stuff. basically.
Yeah. But it freed everyone else up to just get on with their stuff and to not have this, oh, let's see what Jodie thinks all the time. So I think I was trying to create this resourcefulness rather than a dependency. And also because I'd systemized the hell out of my business, everything was in the manual. So the answer was always, is it in the manual? And then they go check that first, and then they'd ask me after that. So I was trying to kind of clone myself with documentation before to be able to train.
That's
Then
interesting too. Can we talk about the
yeah, go for
manual?
it.
That's
Yes.
exciting.
Yeah.
I feel like, Chris, you gotta like this.
Yeah.
Like, wait,
Absolutely.
it's not exactly the sexiest name, but the manual, that is like scale is what you're talking about. It's a scale tool in a nutshell. And I'm sure lots of people listening today are probably these founders who are running around like crazy and they're trying to figure out how to get to the next level. And it's always a scaling. People say, well, you gotta have scale, you gotta scale, you gotta scale. That's an example of like how to do it. So tell me about the manual. I'm very interested.
Okay. So 3 years into running a business, realized I hadn't taken a holiday, really wanted to take a holiday. So decided that I would throw myself into the deep end. I booked a 5-week trip to Australia that was 3 months into the future and gave myself a deadline. And the deadline was to get this business to run without me so that I can get on the plane and nothing's going to burn down. And how that looked was a simple spreadsheet, as all the best things start.
Yes.
Column A was every single process that happened in my business. This was all inspired by the E-Myth, by the way. That was the book I read to start thinking about
that.
this.
That's a good
Absolutely.
one. Yeah, we're into that. Okay,
Yeah,
keep going.
it was so good.
Yeah.
And then column B was who does this thing now? And what went in nearly all of those rows was just my name. And then I was like, no wonder I don't have any free time and I haven't taken a holiday because I'm doing everything. So there's like 65 rows at this point.
Ooh.
In column C went who is going to do this in the future? And that might have been the name of someone I had in my team right then. That might have been the role of someone I needed to hire. That might have been a software that I needed to use, or it might have just been like, stop doing this because it's stupid and you're just creating work for yourself for no reason. So 4 things, a combination of 4 things went in those different cells. And then column D was the plan. So it was, how am I going to hire someone? How am I going to train someone? How am I going to find a software? Or it was, when am I going to stop doing this? And then it was the date. So then I sorted column D in order of the date. And that just became my action plan for all the things I needed to do before Australia. And then every single one of those then became a manual, like a SOP, essentially, inside what became the manual. If I was doing this now, it would be so much faster because I would use ChatGPT to do it. I would record it on Loom. I would use a prompt to turn it into a 3-column SOP, and it would be so fast. But I hand wrote these, or I trained someone to do it, talked them through it. They came up with questions, and then they wrote the SOP that they then followed. And I got much better ownership from doing it that way when it was going to be someone else's job.
That's a good idea too.
Yeah,
I think about, so when we were acquired, we kind of went through this process, right, of transitioning our team sort of into the other team, more of like a merger sort of situation. And one of the things I was trying to do was try to remove myself increasingly from the business, and Chris as well, because you kind of see the writing on the wall as a founder after you've been acquired, and you're kind of like, it's kind of like growing without us, it's kind of like, and we were just trying to get rid of the stuff that we were doing. And so I actually went on, somebody, if I may pat myself on the back here, somebody at Rave referred to it as a master class in like transitionary work. I made this enormous thing in Confluence, the manual basically of documentation. But what I didn't think of was having somebody else do it with me telling, or like working with them, because then they would have owned it and understood it and still have been there. That's a big miss by me.
Yeah.
That one's sorry, Rave. That was Rave Mobile Safety. That one's on me. Sorry about that. But yeah.
It depends what kind of people you've got. Some people just like being handed a document to follow. But if you've built up resourceful people, yeah.
I think that they've heard it. Like, there was a lot of content in there, and like as much as I'd like to believe that I made it like as easy as possible to like jump around and find stuff and hyperlink and videos and different kinds of content, diagrams, like whatever. At the end of the day, it's still going to be really challenging for anybody to navigate what is effectively like a memory dump, like a work dump into these Confluence pages. So,
Jodie, can you talk to us a little bit about what it's like being a digital nomad? because this does sound amazing. I'm single, like, and Dave always makes fun of me that I should be traveling the world.
Yeah, I remain actively pissed off at Chris that he does not travel the world. He doesn't have any kids, no partner, no dog, nothing, lots of money. Get the hell out of here.
Yeah. I'm also pissed off at Chris now. Chris, you're in a prison of your own making.
I know.
I don't think we've had a guest ever say that. I'm also pissed off at Chris.
To my defense, I will say that my perception of travel has always been work travel, and like going to the airport, getting in a cab, going to the hotel, setting up the booth at the trade show, going back to the airport, flying back home, being exhausted. Like, travel just always resonated with me as being like, oh, what a terrible experience. But I see there's another world. So maybe you could elaborate. How do you do this? How do you action being a digital nomad?
Exactly. So what you've described in terms of travel, it very much can be like that. But I think that happens for holidays or vacations. I think if you take 1 or 2 week trips, you get the worst of all worlds. But what I do is kind of polarize this. So either go somewhere for 3 days, be a tourist, explore the place, do all the tours, take all the pictures, see all the sites, pack it all in, stay in a hotel, or go somewhere and stay there for like 2 to 3 months and be a local, join a gym, have a local area, get your meal prep, understand how it works, make friends with locals, that kind of thing. So it's either 3 days or 2 to 3 months. And I pretty much choose somewhere. I travel with my husband and we recreate our whole life just in a new place. And that does mean finding a really good Airbnb, having coffee shops around that we can either work from or go and actually just have coffee from and not work from, like call us psychopaths. And then stuff like joining a gym, having a crew there. I'm part of a network that's location independent entrepreneurs, so there's always people that I can meet in each place, and then you just act like a local. And it's quite nice because it means that you don't have to put pressure on yourself to do all the touristy stuff because you've got like 2 to 3 months, so you can just take it much slower. It's kind of called like slow madding, where you do it like this. But it's
I like that.
It's very nice. The friction of travel is still there. The friction of recreating your life in a new place is definitely there. But then when you have systems, there's not a manual for this, but there's definitely a set of processes that my VA will help with to take some of the friction out of it, because the goal is that you just get to your normal routine, but just in a different place with new people around.
That's really cool. That's really interesting. I feel like that I would find that pretty stressful to pack up. Like, even though it's every 3 months or whatever, like I get that. I totally understand. Like, you obviously want to, like, I actually used to say this to people that if you take a 1 or 2 week vacation, people they stop working and pile up the work for you. If you take more than 2 weeks, people start figuring out and doing the work, or like moving around you or past you or somehow getting it done. So I totally know what you're saying there. But it would be, on the one hand, I would love to have that experience where you could go like anywhere and do all that. I have 2 kids now, and one of them is like an infant, so it's just going to be a tough one for me. But I love my children, but pre-kids, I would have done this for sure.
Because you're still working.
I don't think sorry, go ahead, as I missed you there.
You're still working in each place. You're still overall probably having this exact same day as you would like at home, but you're just in a different place. And I actually think it's easier. So I don't have a base camp. So it's just, I'm always living from an Airbnb or a hotel. But I think it's easier picking up your whole life, putting it in a suitcase, because it's not like, oh, what shall I pack? It's like, I'm just going to pack everything. And that's simple. And what actually made it easier, so I was in Thailand for October and November last year. And the laundry lady lost 70% of our clothes.
Huh. Well, that's problematic.
It's not a problem for me because all I have is Amazon Basics.
Yeah, Chris orders Amazon Basics. So this was actually covered in a different episode several seasons ago. But anyway, yeah.
So I went to pick up the laundry, and she handed me back a bag that was significantly lighter than the one I'd given to her. And at first I thought, this seems odd, but she was just very, very happy to hand me this bag. And then I was like, is stuff missing? And then we realized that nearly everything was missing. And I went through a range of emotions, anger, sadness, like everything. And then I was like, no, this is okay. It's actually going to make it easier to pack next time. I'm always at the weight limit anyway, and I probably need new clothes because I hate shopping and I never replace them. So that was actually a really good thing. But I feel like it's the experience of doing this digital nomad thing that has just made me realize I just don't need anything. I need my laptop, I need my passport, and I need my husband. And it's like there are three things. It's like tick, tick, tick. If that's all there, everything's functioning and it's totally fine.
You sound like you're obviously an optimist, because I know, like, generally speaking, founders are chronic optimists anyway. So like that makes a lot of sense to me. But that's cool. I think it's a really interesting lifestyle.
It's hard to have the laundry lady lose the laptop, the passport, the husband as well. So
yeah, if the husband, yeah, that would be problematic. But I feel like
that would be.
Yeah, losing your passport would not be fun. So, okay, let's switch gears here a little bit. Really, I think your life is crazy fascinating. But let's go into your latest thing, Coachvox. Tell me about this and the AI tool and what's happening here. Why is it valuable for founders? Let's dig into that.
So how it started was after I sold my agency, I was figuring out what to do next. I'd handed it over. It took 2 weeks to hand it over. I didn't have an earnout. I just kind of handed them the manual and everything.
What?
No.
How did that happen? You must have negotiated that, I guess, as part of the deal kind of thing, you know?
So all three offers that we got all had earnouts as part of them. The one that we wanted to go with had an 18-month earnout. And this is when the broker was kind of talking with them, and I was like, just let me talk to them. And then I was like, okay, cool, this earnout. So what do you want me to do? And they were like, oh, like run the business. And I was like, I've got someone who runs the business. So do you want me to do their job? And they were like, oh, no, maybe it doesn't make sense. And then they were like, oh, do sales. And I was like, oh, I've got someone that does sales. So do you want me to do their job? And then they were like, oh, no, it doesn't make sense. So in the end, it was like they realized themselves that having me involved would take it a step backwards because I'd already removed myself from those positions. Yeah. So they just were like, yeah, you don't need an earnout. So then they changed the offer. It was after that. And then I was deciding what to do next. And I started just kind of coaching, mentoring a bunch of people who just wanted to sell their agency. They wanted to systemize and sell their agency. And then when I was doing that, I realized everyone had the exact same problems. And I found like I was repeating myself and I was sending them to the exact same resources and I was doing all the same stuff. And it's like, this could literally be an AI. This could be like an AI me that was talking to them. And then around the time that ChatGPT came out and we started messing around with it, we basically created AI me to do exactly this. And then I shared it with my clients and they started using it and they were like, this is really good. And the best thing was it would keep them on track in between sessions. So rather than it being, I had a session with them after like 2 weeks or after a month, and then they'd be like, oh yeah, I was going to do all that stuff, but then I watched this Hormozy video and now I'm doing something different, or whatever they would say when they would kind of go off track in between sessions. They now could get kept on track by having AI coaching. And I told a couple of friends about this, and I know quite a few coaches and mentors, and then some of them were just like, can I have one of these? And then we started building Coachfox, the company that now exists, that creates AI versions of top coaches so that they actually do less. They do coach their clients, but it's more, they kind of do their marketing. So the AI version of them becomes a lead magnet on their site that builds familiarity with their methods and their frameworks and their content, and then helps convert clients to like prospects to clients.
That's interesting. So wait, I thought you were going to say like basically what the AI tool does is like deal with so it's like let's just say I'm the coach for a second. So I love the idea of an AI version of myself as well as myself, but that way I can talk even more. But if we had an AI Dave, so and then I'm a coach, I would imagine that tool just handles kind of like the low hanging fruit of like coaching questions, like the things that come up frequently that are sort of more patterned, like you could identify. But then there's like a next level when there's something more complex or people want to go deeper and they want to talk to the actual coach, they can do that. Is that kind of the approach, or?
Yeah, that's exactly right. But you, as the creator of your AI, could decide what to do with it. So you might decide that you've got this existing community that you're going to put it in so that people can access that all the time. Or maybe it's something for your current clients in between sessions. Or you just think, this would be loads better if everyone could have access to it, and then you use it as a lead magnet that collects email addresses, and then you have all the conversations, so you know the challenges of everyone in your audience, so that you can use that to create more content or create new products or offers, or
that's really cool.
It's like market research. Yeah.
That's an awesome idea. I actually kind of feel like we should do this for Startup Different, but anyway, maybe the podcast can just, have you seen
turn the podcast into an AI
tool? I mean, have you seen Notebook LM, right? It's this like thing where you can put any book, it's through Google, and it basically makes a podcast out of it, which blew my mind. I shamelessly put our book in there and like kind of like heard it. It was actually like, it was like a little weird, but it was pretty good. But at any rate, I think, I think that that's a really interesting tool though. And I like it for tons of reasons. I like it for the fact that it's like scaling you, like as a person, like scaling feedback. It's dealing with the easier stuff. It's providing a service for your users, for your community that's actually interested in it. And for you as the coach, you get to focus on the things that you really want to take on. This saves time, you know? So that's pretty cool. Jodie, I'm really impressed by that. I'm not gonna lie. So how's business going?
Yeah.
Is it going well or?
Yeah, it's going. Yeah, it's going good. We've got a lot of amazing coaches with solving all sorts of weird and wonderful problems. We've got a lot of business coaches, marketing coaches, an astrologer, recruitment consultants, like nearly everything. Our community manager compiles the list of the ones that join every week, and some of them are just I didn't even know that there was coaches in that field. Some of them are solving very specific, like a sleep coach for babies, or
Yep. Oh my goodness. I actually, that's so weird. I have a sleep consultant coming tonight for my baby.
Okay. Well, there you go.
That's awesome. That's so fantastic.
But it's cool because they've got so much knowledge in their heads, and it just seems crazy that they have to either spend all their time writing content to put it out there, to figure out marketing, to do all the stuff that they don't actually really want to be doing because they just want to be coaching people. So we're trying to just make it very easy, and AI is how you do that.
Awesome. Well, we're running low on time, so I want to ask you one last question for our chat today. What is one sort of either like startup myth or some piece of advice that you'd like to give founders, particularly those folks who are going from 0 to 5 million, so reasonably early-ish and sort of that early scale sort of stuff? Is there one piece of advice you'd want to give them based on your career?
I think the biggest startup myth is that building a personal brand makes your business reliant on you. I do not think that is true at all. I used to think it was true, and then I realized that people like Gary Vaynerchuk or Jeff Bezos, like if my Amazon package is late, Jeff does not care.
Well, we don't know that. Hang on, let's call
Jeff
him up. Somebody, Graham, get Bezos on the line, and we'll get this figured out.
So if you build your brand big enough, then you become that next level up where people buy into you, they trust you, they know your vibe, and they will buy into your company, but they will not expect you in the room. And it took me far too long to realize that. I think I was like, oh no, it'll be reliant on me, and I'll never be able to sell. But my agency had my initials, and it's still possible. It's like you can do this, and I think that it makes you play the business game on easy mode, because everything becomes inbound, and team members just you manifest team members, and lots of stuff happens. Can I just tell you one quick story?
Yeah.
So once I made a really ridiculous hiring decision based on a sign from the universe. So I used to have a home office where there was a window, there was my desk with a ring light on it, and then there was a map of the world over here. And one time I got back from the gym, the sun was shining through the window, through the ring light. It cast a circle over Cape Town on the map of the world.
Cool.
And then later that day, I got a job application from someone who wanted to be a social media manager in my company, and he was from Cape Town, and I just hired him. And it was like,
wait, did you interviewed? You didn't.
Yeah, I interviewed him. And he was really good. But if I was kind of on the fence about him, that was the thing. I was like, yes, cool. This is the thing. And then I just did it. But I felt almost like, because I'd started to be visible online, just awesome people were kind of coming my way more than before. And I felt like that was an example of one. And then he was really good, and he went with the company when we sold as well.
Oh, that's awesome.
Wow.
That's cool. That's really cool. It's funny how you meet people who are good for your roles. I remember Chris and I, we love going to breakfast places for lunch. It's kind of funny, but we'd go to lunch and there was this manager at this one breakfast place who was really, really good. He just knew us. He actually referred to us as the burrito boys because we would get breakfast burritos every time. But Chris and I are weirdos. But anyway, and then one time we got a job application. And it said, I was reading it, and the guy was, we like to hire people in hospitality for customer service. And it said, works as manager at, that breakfast place. And I was like, oh my goodness, I think I know exactly who this person was. So I called him up right away and I was like, do you know the burrito boys? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, I'm one of the burrito boys. And he's like, oh my God. And we hired him. He worked for us for years. He was unbelievable. It's crazy how weird moments of serendipity, right? Yeah. So anyway, Jodie, thank you so much for joining us. A really awesome conversation. Loving what you're doing. Coachvox sounds awesome. Folks, check it out. And that is another episode of Startup Different. Thank you again for joining us. And next week, we will deep dive on this conversation, and we will see you then. Hey, you made it all the way to the end of the episode. Nicely done. If you enjoyed this episode, like, comment, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so the almighty algorithm can help others find us. Want more from Startup Different? Check out our book, Startup Different, the myth-busting blueprint for your multi-million-dollar business. Follow us on social. We're big on YouTube, Instagram, and LinkedIn. You can also check us out at startupdifferent.com. Special thanks for this episode to Graham and our friends at Toronto Podcasts. Visit them at torontopodcast.ca. See you next week.